This episode is brought to you by Future Group, delivering smarter, safer and more sustainable solutions for the built environment. From fire safety to lighting and electrical, cutting-edge EV charging, advanced security systems, regeneration works and full-scale decarbonisation, we've got your property needs covered. Trusted by property managers across the UK. Visit future-group.uk. Future Group, leading today for a better tomorrow.
Welcome to another episode of Beyond Four Walls, the podcast where we explore the evolving landscape of property management and the visionary minds shaping its future. In today's episode, we're joined by two trailblazers in the industry, Emma and Zoe Southwell, co-founders of Tailored Management Support Ltd. Launched just 2 months ago, TMS is a remote property management service that combines Emma and Zoe's extensive experience to offer bespoke solutions to the sector. Emma and Zoe bring a wealth of knowledge and fresh perspective to property management. Their innovative approach with TMS aims to address the unique challenges faced by property professionals today, emphasising flexibility, efficiency, and personalised support. And in our conversation, we'll talk about their journey of establishing TMS, the motivations behind embracing a remote service model, and how they're leveraging technology to enhance client experiences. And we'll also discuss the broader implications of remote management in the property sector and what it means for the future of the industry. So welcome both of you. Emma, Zoe, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Of course. So Emma, can you just kick off by telling us what Tailored Management Support is and why you launched it?
Yes, certainly. Well, firstly, thank you for having us. We're excited to be on the podcast. You've explained in the intro really clearly what TMS is about, but how it came about was Zoe and I have been working together through our other respective businesses. So I own Peach Property Consultancy and Zoe owns Connect Us Recruitment. And we've been working together through those businesses. And I'd started to get some inquiries that related to a support system for managing agents that, for whatever reason, needed some staffing solutions. And it didn't sit in the consultancy business that I have. And I had started to refer the work to other companies that might be able to offer some support. Zoe and I got talking about it, and Zoe identified that a lot of her clients were talking about requirements that they had, in the sense that maybe they was looking for a full-time member of staff, but for whatever reason they couldn't start yet. So there was a gap there. Other inquiries were very much, we're not ready to employ somebody permanently or full-time. We just have, a bit of an ad hoc requirement. So we started to have conversations about how we might be able to help. And to be honest with you, it really snowballed from there. We spoke to a few companies in the industry and they just felt that it was a gap that we would be filling, that they would find really useful. So it's gone from there, really.
It sounds amazing what you're doing, and definitely from a managing agent's perspective, as I'm sure you know from your past experience, Emma, you don't always need somebody full-time. You just need somebody for that project, or you just need somebody just to help you out with admin for 2 weeks because you've got somebody going on holiday and somebody's sick or something like that. So I think it's a really great approach what you're doing. But Zoe, can you say what gap in the market did you identify that ultimately led to the creation?
For me, in sort of my part of the conversation with Emma, it was, sort of as a person and Connect Us as a business, it's really in our values to want to find the solution, to want to find an answer. I think it's obviously ultimately why I'm in recruitment, to support and to help. And recruitment, I think, is one of probably the biggest headaches of the industry. It's been a very constant headache for the 10 years I've been in it, whether that's not being able to find the right people, or the cost of finding the right people, or the length of time it takes to find the right people, or on the flip side of that, the cost of finding the wrong person, or not being able to find someone that falls within your salary bracket of what you're looking to pay, because let's face it, salaries are climbing and salaries are increasing, but management fees aren't. So we're already in a very candidate driven market, and then if you factor in salaries climbing and sort of ultimately candidates outpricing themselves in the market, it's really hard to find the right people. And so I was considering sort of the challenges that my clients were facing, which is, like I say, time, cost, and the impact of not having someone in the business. Because if a property manager gives notice, they're usually on a month's notice. Factor in sort of 2 weeks to find someone or find people, then a week to interview, then sometimes another week to do second interviews. You're already, at the end of that notice period before you've even made an offer. Then factoring in sometimes a 3-month notice period, you've got 3 months without a property manager and a portfolio that still needs to be managed. And we know the role of a property manager. We know how chaotic and how much falls to them, in terms of their responsibility. So how could a business possibly function without one for 3 months? So trying to find a solution to help prevent that headache happening when, the hiring manager or the business owner sat there thinking, oh my God, what am I going to do for the next 3 months? Overwork my existing team, or, what are my options here? And at the same time, not putting the pressure on for a company to make a hire really quickly, and sometimes hiring wrong. So it was about trying to find something that offers a solution in there. And I speak to Emma really frequently anyway, and sort of voice my challenges and concerns sometimes daily to her. So I was on the phone and just sort of saying, like, I've tried a couple of things, I've explored a couple of things, some were working, some hadn't sort of panned out in the way that I'd hoped. And it was a bit of like a eureka moment of, hang on, why are we not teaming up here? You're experiencing what you're experiencing with your consultancy. It's a different issue to what I'm facing, but sort of the same solution works for both sides. So given our relationship and, my trust in, Emma's experience and Emma's expertise, it didn't work without Emma. I couldn't do it on my own, and I needed something that would very much work in solving a solution for Connectus. So TMS was born.
If you've already got that relationship and you've already got that trust together, why not? Why not do it? But are there any particular types of businesses that you currently work with or want to work with, or does it matter what size the agent is? Could it be small companies, larger companies? How does that work?
So we're available to support all different types of businesses, but what we have realised is that the people that really require our services the most are small and medium-sized businesses. And we find that the larger agencies, they are able to, sort of distribute the work amongst the teams that they have. So we haven't been working so much with larger agencies, but certainly the medium-sized agencies and the small agencies we've been supporting on quite a significant level. We're also working with a couple of self-managed sites as well. We're in a really interesting time in the industry at the moment where people are exploring their options, and the traditional route of having a managing agent to cover everything is changing in some circumstances. And we're working with some self-managed companies that are working with managing agents that cover their accountancy functions. But they want to look after the operational aspects themselves. But sometimes that tips over, certainly for Section 20 works, those kind of larger projects. So, in a nutshell, we're working with medium-sized agents, small agents, sole traders, and also self-management companies as well. And we're working with them in a variety of ways. So with some of them, we're looking after their inbox and just keeping things ticking. Maybe they're on holiday, or, especially as sole traders that need to take some time off. It's a tricky situation for them to be able to switch off. So we're supporting sometimes with general administration tasks, but with others, we're looking at onboarding works. We're looking at helping people review for tenders that they're submitting, and everything in between, really.
Okay, so what does so I'll keep this with you, Emma, because you just mentioned about onboarding. What does onboarding a client? So say I came to you and said, I need some support with administration, just helping the property managers out for the next 2 weeks. What does onboarding look like for your team?
So in the first instance, we would discuss how they would like us to work within their software system. So some agents have made a decision for us to have an account with their systems, and sometimes we use an account that's already existing, especially if we're covering an absentee role. So our first obligation is to establish how they want us to work within their software systems. And some don't have software systems per se. So, it's really just understanding how the business works. Fortunately, Zoe and I have got a lot of experience with varying types of software systems. So that's been something that has been really easy to navigate up until this point. And once we've established that, we really look at what it is that they would like their outcomes to be. So sometimes it's supporting somebody that's already in a role and almost working in an assistant capacity, or sometimes it's just completely taking control of the portfolio and looking after it as if property manager was in that position. We discussed the parameters in which they would like us to work. So whether or not that means that there's a financial limit that they're happy for us to spend, or do they just want us to obtain quotations before instructing any works? Sometimes we do all of the background work and then we pass it over to somebody to instruct, or sometimes we fulfill all of that role. So we just explore all of those parameters at the beginning of the conversation. And then, as you know, property management changes so very quickly. So those inquiries can be more varied than our original conversation has covered. So we'll just revisit that as we go along. On a typical role where we're looking after incoming inquiries, then that's how we would deal with that.
Okay. And Zoe, are you able to walk me through a bit of a real life example, if you like, of a challenge that you helped an agent resolve?
I think certainly from my perspective for TMS, I think I always focus on more of sort of the softer skills side. So Emma can get into more of the technical challenges that we've solved. But I think for me, where TMS really hits home and the main problem we're almost solving it is that mindset and that mental shift for a lot of people. So we had a smaller agency that had just sort of started themselves, and the owner of the business wanted to take some annual leave. And you can't do that if you're the owner of the business and you're kind of the only one that can control what's going on. You can go and sit on a beach, but you've probably got a laptop sat in front of you and you're still, is it much of a holiday? I'm not sure. You're probably just a property manager with a tan. But I think what we're solving is that it's allowing people to actually take a break. Those startup businesses, the sole traders, the senior management within a small managing agent, they can actually walk away from their desk and take a break and know that their portfolio and even their small team is in very safe hands. I mean, Emma's experience is so extensive. I don't think there's anything in this industry she's not faced or dealt with in her time, as well as the supporting and training and mentoring of more junior team members. So for me, my view of TMS is very much we solve that problem of not being able to take a break. And it's allowing people to do that, because burnout is a very real issue for our sector. Starting a business, it might be years before you're allowed to take that actual break. So I think the challenge we solve is that. But Emma, in terms of the more technical, did you want to sort of pick on something we've dealt with recently?
Definitely. I mean, some of the more technical things that we've helped with are we've helped people that are looking at tendering for new business. So I've done that an awful lot in my career. And to be honest with you, I was in my glory assisting with that personally. So it was a really nice opportunity to help them look at, what their business offerings were and whether or not they were in line with what this potential client wanted, and offering sort of an outsider view to their whole tendering process was really useful to them. So that was something that was selfishly quite personally satisfying to be involved in, and was really successful for them. But I think the area that, I mean, it hasn't been challenging for us, but it's provided a solution to a challenge for our clients, is that they've been able to contact us with really short notice to say, it's 4:30 and I need help tomorrow. And we've been able to just jump in on quite a few occasions now to offer that help the next day, because the service that we're providing is to support other businesses, and that support is very rarely planned. So the requirement that they have is something that's going to be very last minute. So our whole business is built around that reactiveness and being available in that way. So I think that it isn't a challenge for us, but it is a solution that we're providing to our clients' immediate challenges. But the actual work that we've been doing from a technical point of view is so incredibly varied. But certainly, I think the most enjoyable, I guess, that I've done so far is supporting businesses while they've been on holiday, knowing that they've come back and said, it's the first time I've had a really good holiday where I've felt comfortable that the business has been supported. So that's an area that gives us huge satisfaction. And also helping businesses to grow with new tenders has been something that's been really enjoyable too.
Saying that about, somebody phones you at 4:30, they need help tomorrow. Going back to earlier about the onboarding and wanting to be able to get a clear picture as to what that they want you to achieve, what they want you to do, that sort of thing. How do you set clear boundaries when it's so last minute? How do you find that? Because I find setting boundaries really difficult. Because I want to help I want to help everyone, and I will say yes to everyone, and then go, actually, can I achieve that? And then things get missed and that sort of thing. So it always comes from a good place for me, may I add. But still, how do you set clear boundaries then with that sort of lastminute.com situation?
I look at it as an opportunity to really understand what it is that our client needs, and for us to be able to tell them and reassure them with the things that we can do. So if they have a requirement that, we haven't faced an issue at the moment that we haven't actually been able to fulfill. So it's a little bit of a tricky question, but I would look at it in the sense that our role and our desire is to support and help people. And if for any reason we can't do that, the most supportive and helpful thing to do is to tell them so that they can, look elsewhere for a solution, or we can suggest, somebody that can offer a solution to them. So although we haven't come up against it at the moment, I look at boundaries in a completely different way, in a sense of, why is somebody coming to us and asking us for something? They're asking because they've got a real genuine need, and it isn't helpful or useful for us to, not give them what they need in the time, or be clear about what our offerings are.
In terms of your offerings then, Zoe, maybe you can explain, is there a typical sheet of services, if you like? So I know you mentioned earlier about inboxes, and we've talked around helping with admin and stuff, but do you have a document, like a list of services that you could send out, or I could put in the show notes, or anything like that people can just briefly look at?
Yeah, I would love to say yes, but the honest answer
but
is no.
We do all the things.
I think it would just say anything and everything.
Yeah.
Emma and I talk about this quite a lot, and actually we're working on a bit of a brochure at the moment, and that's been challenging because there isn't sort of a list of things that we can support with, because that list is so varied and so different, and it's dependent on the needs of our clients. And if you sat down and wrote I know that obviously job descriptions for block managers exist, but if you sat down and wrote down what a managing agent would deal with in like a couple of days, that could be so wildly varied. That anything and everything pretty much, and like I say, that depends on the needs of the client, but very much with what we're supporting them with, whether it's an extra pair of hands, and therefore it can sometimes be more of on an admin basis, or like Emma said, if someone is away on leave or sickness or extended leave, whatever the case may be, that might be more into the nitty-gritty of managing the portfolio. So it really depends on how the client wants us to be involved, or how involved they want us to be. And there's no real sort of boundary, I suppose, with what's within that. Anything,
which is nice for our industry, isn't it? Because in a way, because as you say quite rightly, it is so varied. You could go from doing AGM packs to up on a roof to tendering for something, or recruiting, or anything like that. It could all fall within your job spec. So I think having a solution like you've got, that somebody can just come to you and say, look, this is what I need help with, can you help? And you just say yes or no. I think that's a great solution to have. Speaking of which, Zoe, can I just ask you again, outsourcing is it a bit of a dirty word? And do they, people think, I don't want to outsource because I don't want to as you said earlier, like some people you can just use their systems, or they don't want to set you up and it's, taking too long. When people are hesitant about outsourcing, what do you say to that?
I think the main hesitation comes around sort of the security piece, around how safe and secure is our data going to be with you, because it's not just, their own internal works, it's the information they're holding on their leaseholders and their clients. And that's possibly the main concern. I think as an industry, obviously, we've shifted into a very remote setting. So the fact that it's remote outsourcing isn't really an obstacle. But I think it's the security piece that poses as one. And it's just really talking through that with the client, around what we do, what we have in place, and addressing any concerns. The security piece can work around so many levels for clients depending on their size. Like, for example, we had a much smaller agency actually courier one of their laptops to us, to just be able to log into their systems. It was one of those 4:30, can you start tomorrow type situations. So to be able to just get us the physical piece of equipment was the route they wanted to go down. But then we've got obviously very robust antivirus protection in place across all of our devices, which was sort of first port of call. But then we can operate through sort of secure VPNs, or, it's that level of protection that the client feels they need for their own peace of mind. And I think it's just listening and understanding the concern and then being able to address it. But that's probably the main one that comes up.
Yeah, which makes sense, doesn't it? Because obviously we've all got to sign up to, protect people's data and that sort of thing. So yeah, I completely get that. But Emma, do you think the property management industry is now ready for a more flexible outsourced support approach?
I do, and I actually think that is crying out for it. And I say that with the confidence following the conversations that we've had with managing agents. Nobody has said to us, I'm not so sure that this is a great model. Everybody has said this is a solution that people have been needing but not recognising it because it hasn't been so readily available. I think that the industry is changing so much. Media is playing a part in feeding a narrative to leaseholders that their options are changing. And to a certain aspect of, there is a lot of truth in that, but also it isn't going to change because there is still going to need to be an awful lot of support. And as I said earlier, we're working with some of the self-managing RMCs or right to manage companies who they're basically looking at it as a pick and mix. Which bits do I want? What bits do we want to do ourselves? And where do we need some support? And some of them are being really, really smart. They're saying, we don't want to knock on our neighbours' doors for service charge funds. So we're going to engage with those agents that are here to provide just an accounting function, but we also want some guidance on what service providers can be used. How do we make sure that those service providers are accredited? How do we get links to some of those service providers so that, we can be taken seriously in this arena as well? And so they reach out to us at TMS for that kind of support and guidance. And as I said, sometimes it's the day-to-day things. Sometimes it's, can you help us tender for a new landscaping business? So there's all sorts of things that we're doing to help in that aspect. So I do think that outsourcing is something that's going to become more and more popular. We're seeing lots of, change in the managing agent arena. We've all experienced within the industry how smaller agents are selling to larger agents. But, Zoe testifies always that there's still so many smaller agents out there, and their staffing concerns and their portfolio requirements are incredibly real and have a huge impact on them as a business. And outsourcing is a perfect solution for them when they're not quite ready to take that next step of having a full-time member of staff.
Which makes total sense. And in terms of the technology and everything that you use, Zoe, is there any specific technology that you've got that you use to support your clients as, a particular, you don't have to say names or anything, but in terms of providers, but how you're using technology to help support staff? I know you said about the laptop being couriered to you and everything, but do you have anything in-house that you use in general?
Yeah, I mean, the only thing we really need ourselves is our own devices, whether that be, laptop or PC, because where it's us taking either over from someone or supporting someone, we're ultimately integrating into their way of working, our client's way of working. So it's logging into their systems, and it is very little to do with us and everything to do with them. And whether that's because there's some agencies that have their own software systems that they use, others will use Fixflow or Blocks Online, or whatever it may be that they're using, we will seamlessly integrate into that and operate in a way that works for the client, because a lot of the way that we're working is not necessarily as us. It's as an extension or someone in-house for them, which is where the seamless part comes in, because as we know, clients have a very real issue with the changing hands of their buildings between property managers. So we don't want to add that extra pair of hands in there where it's this new person that's come in, and who are they? And they've only been in here for a week and they're gone. So it's all about integrating for us. So we're not really using our own systems other than just how we manage our own workload internally between Emma and I. It's very much what the client uses.
Well, that makes total sense, because you don't want to, as you say, you don't want to be swapping and changing and confusing that. You don't want to confuse the leaseholders any more than the change in legislation is confusing leaseholders, But Emma, you've both had a really long career in property management, but what's been the most rewarding part of starting this business? Emma, that was to you.
Oh, thank you. So the most rewarding part for me for starting this business, I guess there's two. Firstly, it's having an opportunity to work with Zoe. So we've been close throughout our time in the industry anyway. So that wasn't new at all. But having an opportunity to work together is for me an absolute highlight. I enjoy working with Zoe so much, and we're real yin and yang to the business. So we both bring something so very different, and I'm really grateful for all of the learning opportunities through that, and also the social media posts, because Zoe does them and I absolutely can't. So I'm grateful for our differences and the different approach that we bring. So that's something that I'm grateful for. But I'm also really grateful for an opportunity to bring a solution to people, especially in a time where there is a lot of frustration in the industry. So it's nice really to be somebody that can bring a solution and to offer support and, hopefully make somebody's sort of week or day a bit easier than what it was before. So they're the real highlights of TMS for me.
Yeah. What about you, Zoe?
Very much sort of the same, really. The opportunity to work with Emma, I'll take that any day of the week. So the fact that I now have that in a very real sense is brilliant. I mean, selfishly, having sort of a business relationship with no doubt one of the most experienced and knowledgeable I think the sector has to offer has just elevated everything I know and understand, which not only obviously supports TMS, but very much connects us too. I love to learn. So, Emma and I will be catching up on anything TMS related, and then we'll start talking about something else. And I'll say, well, how does that work? And explain this. And so the learning side of it for me has, and sort of by extension, the Connectors team has been incredible. But you just can't beat that feeling of being able to offer something that really truly helps someone, and the feedback you get from that, whether that be short or long term. It's having someone come back and just say thank you so much, when we're talking about TMS, it's how has this not already existed? How is this the first time I'm hearing about the fact you're doing this? It's all of those really wonderful moments all combined. So it's been very, very rewarding for so many reasons.
Oh, that's amazing. The relationship that you've got is really heartwarming, I have to say. But speaking of your own mental health and well-being, you've both got other businesses, which obviously take up a lot of your time. How are you finding the juggle? Are you, I know you've got each other, but are you coping okay? Are you both okay? Is everything, how are you feeling? Two businesses to run, that must be tricky. Emma, that one there, we'll start with you.
Yeah, it's interesting at times, and we've found a really good flow with it. We started we launched in February, but we started conversations about this in around December time. And that was one of the first things that we talked about. So PPC is incredibly important to me, and I know that Connectus is really important to Zoe. And what we really wanted was to give, all three businesses the attention that they deserved. We didn't want to compromise on any of them. So it was really important that we set out what our boundaries are. I mean, we're back to that boundary thing again. And it was so important that we sat down and we set out what our boundaries were. And we was incredibly honest with each other, which is an aspect of our relationship that I really appreciate. And we talked about what capacity we have, when that capacity would need to tip into us employing teams and looking at things like that. So we've set that out and we touch base on that on a really regular basis. We know where each other's at in terms of workload or other things going on. So we talk about it in real terms, and we haven't found that to be a problem because we're communicating so openly with it. We have conversations with our clients at TMS as to when they would like their workload carried out as well. So sometimes the work will take place during working hours, but sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it can take place, in the evenings or at weekends. So we just schedule all of our business requirements around that and make sure that everything's fulfilled. And, I think when you have a passion to do something, you make that work. But we are both very, very mindful of well-being and burnout. I've experienced, working with people that have had burnout, so I understand the impact that has on people. Zoe's working with clients who, have got that within their businesses as well. So it's really important that we keep a handle on that and make sure that we schedule our time accordingly. But so far, we've not come up against any hurdles. But I really think that that's due to the communication and the awareness that we have around it.
And Zoe, similar question, I guess, but obviously you want to look after yourself, but looking after your relationship with Emma as well, they say never work with family or animals, right? Or something like that. But obviously you're really close friends as well. And, I work, or Emma have worked with really close friends, and you don't want to ruin that relationship. If you have a falling out over business, you need to have that clear line, don't you? In that, this isn't about our friendship, this is about our business. So how do you cope with that?
Yeah, I think similarly to sort of what Emma was just saying, we're very open with one another, and we do check in regularly with each other, just sort of how are you dealing with this? What have you got going on outside of TMS? It's about sort of bringing everything into the picture, because it's not just TMS, it's TMS and PPC and Connectus, and even in the build up to the LMP events, it's been pretty hectic with the admin
I'm sure
organizing events. But it's just about checking in with each other. And I'm also very very conscious of the fact that obviously Emma is a real driving force in TMS in terms of the knowledge and the experience and her ability, and I kind of just feed into that really. And so I do make a real effort to sort of say to Emma quite regularly, how are you getting on? I feel like maybe I'm not pulling my weight, do you need me to do something? Because it's intense work, and you want to do it right, and you really want to provide that solution and the answer. And so I do make a real effort to check in with Emma regularly. And I think, like Emma said, it's about us setting boundaries and being realistic with our expectations, because I will often overload myself. It's something that I've been working on for ever. But I'll often say yes, because I want to, and sometimes wanting to and having the capacity to are two very different things. So
they certainly are.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And I know you only launched in February, so I'm not going to say what's next and all that kind of stuff, because the business is so new. But Emma, is there anything you'd like to add before we finish off? If I leave it at that rather than the what's next question, what would you like to add to our listeners?
I think the thing that I would really like to add is that through TMS and also PPC, I'm in a position where I'm working with some fantastic businesses, and to have the opportunity to do that is the driving force behind what I'm doing and what we're doing. And it's a really great position of my career at this particular time to be able to look around me and see the companies that I'm associated with. And, you know, there's some real trailblazers in the industry that I'm working with. And, you know, you'd only need to have a look at my LinkedIn to see who they are.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, I'm just really privileged to be working with those businesses and the clients that we're working with through TMS. You know, sometimes they don't want us to be advertising that we're working with them because they have client relationships that they're trying to manage in a way that's appropriate for their business. So we don't sort of shout too much about who we're working with. We like that client confidentiality. If they want to post that they're working with us, then that's fine. So I think really for me, it's not really about what's next, as you said. It's just about maintaining pride in what we do, supporting our clients, whether it's through TMS or our other respective businesses, and just offering a really good service with integrity and just building trust.
And Zoe, is there anything you'd like to add?
I think I'd just like to sort of add that I'd love for companies and for managing agents to be really open-minded to the help that's on offer and not being afraid to ask for it, because particularly when you consider sort of the new businesses starting up in this industry, if they're anything like me, you don't like to ask for help because you don't want to admit that you can't do it yourself. So being open-minded to you know, evolving as a business, the support that is on offer, how that can integrate into your business to prevent you know, sort of a domino effect of issues coming up for you, whether that's staffing or just additional support you need on a project, and, you know, pushing a deadline because you can't get it all done in time. Just be really open-minded to what's on offer and ask for help.
Well, thank you both so much. I really appreciate your time. I hope you have the most success with TMS and your respective businesses. And I hope it all goes really well for you.
Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to my latest podcast. You can find me on LinkedIn and Instagram. The links are in the show notes. Or you can contact me on jodie@jodiefraser.com. For more content and updates, don't forget to subscribe to this podcast on your favourite platforms. Thank you once again for listening. Until next time, take care.